Thank you for joining, dear devotees. I apologize for running late. Can I start?
Yes, prabhuji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Shunuta Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantosto Patrani Vednuti Satsatam Nashtapraeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Screen. Om Agyantamarandasya Janandana Shlakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishwapadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatale Shatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Prabhupada ki jai. Bhaktan ki jai. Can I share my screen?
Yes, prabhuji.
Just 1 second. Going to control screen. Just trying to rearrange things. Can we just do it, please? Do you see it or no?
Not
Hello?
yet. Not yet, prabhuji. Now we can see.
Now we can see, bro.
Okay, thank you. So I see seeing like the Mother Prabhu, Krishna Marai Prabhu, Mansi Ganga Mataji, Viti Mataji, Hare Krishna Tajango Prabhu. Nice to see you. Happy New Year. And Sarva Shakti Mataji. Is that right?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So we're in Canto 1, verse 15. I'm sorry, chapter 15, verse 39. The Pandavas retire timely. So I'll recite 3 times and then others can recite. Atriyam tata vajram surashena patim tata prajyapatam nirupishyatim agnim api padeshvara mataranam tata vajram surashena patim tata prajyapatyam nirupishyatim agnim api padeshvara Mathurayam tata vajram surashena patim tata prajapatyam nirupishyatim agnim api padeshvara. Anybody like to recite?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I can try, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Madhurayam tata vajram surasena patim tata prajapatyam nirupsyetyam agnin api bhadishvara. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Also would like to give it a shot?
I can try.
Okay.
Mathuram tattha vajram suresna patim tathata prajapatyam nirupshetam agnim abhipad ishvara.
Thank you, bro.
I can try, Prabhuji. Okay. You go, Mataji. Mathurayam tata vajram suresenapatim tata prajapatyam nirupyestim agnin abhipatishvaraha. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Viji Mataji, I think you were also going to chant.
Yes, Prabhu. Mathuranam tata vajram surasena tata prajapatyam nirupekshim agnin api vad ishvaraha. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Because I think some devotees joined. I myself was running late. Would any of you like to chant?
I can try, Prabhuji. Mathurayam tata vajram shurasenapatim tata prajapatyam nirupyeshtim agnin apibad ishvaraha. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Mathurayam tata vajram shurasena patim tata prajapatyam nirupshetim agnin apibad ishvaraha. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you.
Prabhuji, I can try.
Okay, go ahead.
Mathurayam tatha varjam surashena patim tatah prajapatyam nirupsyetim agnin apibad ishvaraha. Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Thank you. I think all of you had a chance, so we can start if that's okay. So, synonyms. Mathurayam, at Mathura, Tata, also, Vajram, Vajra, Surashena Patim, king of the Surashenas, Tataha, thereafter, Prajapatyam, Prajapatya sacrifice, Nirupya, having performed, Istam, goal, Ishvara, Abhibhat, placed in himself, Ishvara, capable. Translation. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Anirudh, grandson of Sri Krishna Bhagavan, at Mathura as the king of Surasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhishthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed himself in the fire, placed in himself the fire, not in the fire, placed in himself the fire for quitting household life. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Anirudh, grandson of Shri Krishna, at Mathura as the king of Surasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhishthir performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed himself the fire for quitting household life. Purport as Divine Vishnu Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaj Yudhishthir, after placing Maharaj Parikshit on the imperial throne of Hastinapur, and after posting Vajra, the great-grandson of Lord Krishna as the king of Mathura, accepted the renounced order of life. The system of the four orders of life and four castes in terms of quality and work is known as Varnashram Dharma. It is the beginning of real human life, and Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a protector of the system of human activities, timely retired from the active life as a sannyasi, handing over the charge of the administration to a trained prince, Maharaj Parikshit. The scientific system of Varnashram Dharma divides human life into four divisions of occupation and four orders of life. The four orders of life as brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas are to be followed by all, irrespective of the occupational division. Modern politicians do not wish to retire from active life, even if they're old enough, but Yudhishthira Maharaj, as an ideal king, voluntarily retired from active administration to prepare himself for the next life. Everyone's life must be so arranged that the last stage of life, say at least the last 15 to 20 years prior to death, can be absolutely devoted to the devotional service of the Lord to attain the highest perfection of life. It is really foolishness to engage oneself all the days of one's life in material enjoyment and fruitive activities. Because as long as the mind remains absorbed in fruitive work for material enjoyment, there's no chance of getting out from conditional life or material bondage. No one should follow the suicidal policy of neglecting one's supreme task of attaining the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead. Verse again. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Anirudh, the grandson of Lord Shri Krishna at Mathura, as the king of Surasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhishthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice and placed himself the fire for quitting household life. So last week we all listened. There was a nice lecture by His Grace Damodar Krishna on the prayer verse, and we've been going over this chapter for some time. So in this chapter, the Pandavas hear about the departure of Shri Bhagavan. Because Bhagavan was requested by devotees to descend for a purpose, to establish the principles of Dharma, vanquish the miscreants, and ultimately to give pleasure to those who are his devotees. And having accomplished those purposes, Sri Krishna Bhagavan appears to have disappeared from this earth, like the sun does at the transition to nighttime. And Arjun, of course, we heard about Arjun's despondency, and then about Arjun's remembrance of Sri Krishna Bhagavan, by understanding the words of the Gita. And Bhagwan fulfilled his promise to Arjun, Manmana bhavat bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam vivasasi satyam te pratigani priyasi me. So when life was absolutely leaving Arjun in a state of great despondency and helplessness, Shri Krishna Bhagwan, as promised to Arjun earlier in the very beginning of Kurukshetra war, came back to Arjun and spoke to him through the Bhagavad Gita. And Arjun regained life, as per Bhagwan's promise to Arjun at the very end of the Gita. So Sri Krishna Bhagwan always fulfills his promise to his sincere and surrendered devotee. And Yudhishthira Maharaj hears this, and being a very wise ruler who is empowered by Bhagwan himself, he could see the symptoms of change in the age, how there was increase in disturbances. Some while back, Prabhupada had spoken about the symptoms and signs of Kali Yuga and how they're very gruesome, etc. And the Pandavas understood, Maharaj Yudhishthira understood, therefore, that ultimately, being pure devotees of Shri Bhagwan, they should remain in the world as long as Shri Bhagwan is present, performing his activities and his pastimes of love. Having heard from Shri Krishna, from Shri Arjun, that Bhagwan Krishna and his Yadav family had returned to spiritual realm, Yudhishthira and his family, as well as Kunti Devi, decided to go back to be in association with Bhagwan. And so Yudhishthira, like Shri Krishna, turned his attention internally upon Shri Bhagwan's instructions. And having deliberated on Krishna's appearance and activities and disappearance, he is able to develop purity in consciousness, and therefore purity in purpose, and therefore purity in activity, for this pure consciousness. Later on, it describes in this chapter about his meditation upon the lotus feet of Shri Krishna continuously. As we've been discussing, lotus feet of Shri Krishna provide remembrance and purification of the heart. So he's quote unquote retiring from his throne and crowning Maharaj Parikshit, their sole heir, as king. So this is a key moment in the Mahabharata, because they're renouncing household life and embracing the renounced order of life. And this, I don't know much about this Prajapatya sacrifice. Apparently, it's a ritual when someone enters and someone enters into life as a renunciate, sannyas, and therefore is basically relinquishing household, because householders are supposed to be holding daily in the ancient days Agnihotra, fire sacrifices. And so essentially the ritual involves essentially symbolically absorbing this fire, Agni, into one's own self, indicating that the fire that they were maintaining daily in Agnihotra as part of their household duties is ending. And the beginning of their discovery of focusing on spiritual life is beginning. And essentially, that fire is within oneself until the time of death, at which time the material shell of the soul is consumed. So it harkens back apparently to this practice of having Agnihotra Homa at one's home on a regular basis as part of daily householder duties. And then symbolically bringing that Agni fire within oneself as a symbolic representation of completing one's householder duties and then being absorbed in Shri Bhagavan in a spiritual journey. And that fire remains within the self, and at the time of death, it consumes mortal remains. Kind of like what happened to Dhritarashtra in the prior discussions. So there are many lessons in the pastimes of Yudhishthira Maharaj. He's a great hero. And ultimately, he's a dear friend of Shri Krishna. And as such, he's acting. So, what are some instructions? The most obvious instruction is that a person in a position of leadership should know when is the time to stop ruling and stop being a leader. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, like Maharaj Parikshit did, is settling his affairs as a king. And he's doing it very expertly. He's not just doing it in a haphazard way. He hands over to Maharaj Parikshit the rulership of Hastinapur and Greater Bharat. And he hands over to Rajanath the rulership of Mathura as per family lineage. So he shows renunciation. He doesn't hold on to position. Prabhupada talks about this in his purport. Because it's very hard in this world to give up positions of leadership and the trappings of leadership. You know, fame, glory, reputation, prestige. So one type of renunciation is at the gross level where one is kind of changing clothing. You know, you see this in India, at least people used to see it in traditional India, where one would give up householder clothing and take up retired life, vanaprash, sannyas, etc. Generally, Brahmanas in traditional society took up sannyas ashram, and Kshatriyas and others took up Vanaprasth, and they took on the suitable clothing for such ashrams. But Maharaj Yudhishthira is renouncing actually internally in the way of his behavior. And that is a sign of his greatness. And the sign of a great leader is not only during the time he rules, but in fact, it's when he stops ruling as well. Because genuine renunciation comes from leaving those things to which one's mind is attracted. We as devotees have left so many things, but ultimately, those are the easiest things to leave behind because they're on the external level. But oftentimes, we have not renounced pride that we have renounced these things. One may, as a devotee, get great pride that, oh, I don't, eat these other items that everybody else eats. I don't live my life. I don't think I live my life the way everybody else lives. So we have some pride in our accomplishments. So that means our renunciation is not genuine at this point. Maharaj Yudhishthira was such an expert that he continued to rule. I read that the rulership of Maharaj Yudhishthira is not instantaneous. That apparently some scholars say it's not instantaneous that Maharaj Yudhishthira left rulership. It took time because you can't just leave everything in limbo because that would not have been suitable for the community and society in general. He continued to rule even after Bhagwan's departure. And so he could have just, stayed the status quo and just kept on ruling and ruling, but he didn't. So he knew when to stop. He had taken care of his worldly duties, just like Parikshit Maharaj had. So, first point is to know when to stop a position and then move into the next general progression for one's life. And one can do that, essentially, if when you think about it, when can we do that? When we're satisfied in spirit. Because ultimately the entire world is searching for happiness. And satisfaction is a symbol of happiness. So this is an important distinction that one who is satisfied is generally very happy. And one who is happy yet may not be satisfied. So the converse does not always occur. One who's satisfied is happy, but one who's happy may not have that satisfaction. Why? Because the happiness in the material world is temporary. But those who are satisfied spiritually, they can be happy anywhere and everywhere. In the material world, when our happiness decreases, we try to solve problem A, B, C, D, E. But in the process of solving those problems, instead of developing a genuine renunciation, we actually, if we look back at it, we become attached to the problems themselves. Because we think by being attached to the problem and problem solving, we will become happy. But actually, subtly, what's happening is we get attached to the problem. As devotees, we should understand that anytime that we have a problem, there's only one genuine solution presented by our scriptures, which is to increase our bhakti. So Arjun, Shri Arjun, the Pandavas, Parikshit Maharaj demonstrate that when faced with problems, we should increase the quality and intensity of our bhakti. That is what scriptures are teaching us. And that's what Sri Krishna taught Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita itself. So we should know when one material position is completed and to start the next position, and that's called renunciation. But renunciation can only occur when one is satisfied. And to be satisfied means to have intensity and absorption in bhakti. Because we may be materially happy, but as we can see, that's not necessarily leading to satisfaction. So our motivation should be to always please Shri Bhagavan. And Srila Prabhupada points it out. Dishra Maharaj understood that externally the task was to rule, but the supreme task is to obtain Krishna Prem and to serve Krishna and his dear devotees. And that's why, in whichever situation he was faced, whether it was when they were outcast or when they became rulers, the Pandavas, he did not renounce for the prestige of name and fame, but to remember Shri Bhagavan. So whichever ashram we may be, whether we are in youth, going to school, etc., whether we're grihastha and married, or whether we're doing retirement, or whether one is taking the sannyas ashram, the whole focus of all the ashrams is to serve Bhagavan, bhakti, and serve in such a way that we're not motivated by attachment to the position of that ashram, but motivation should be to please Shri Bhagavan. Just like we don't perform kirtan to become a great kirtaniya, we don't give lectures to be recognized as a great learned person. We don't cook to become a great cook. We do these to serve Shri Bhagavan. Because our aim is to purify our existence. Srila Prabhupada says that the aim of the varnashrams, varna and ashram, is to purify our existence from our worldly, our material conception. If we do that, then every ashram has principles of living that bring us closer to Krishna. So that's the third point. First is know when to leave a position. Second is when to leave a position one must be satisfied spiritually. And third is that to have that, our motivation if we want to be satisfied, has to be to please Bhagavan. And fourth is that one cannot renounce unless one is detached. You see this. Vasudeva Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Priyojita Yanati Asha Vairagyam Yanam Chadyayat Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service, bhakti, unto Sri Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. We're seeing this in the example of the Pandavas. Causeless knowledge means it doesn't mean it's causeless. It means it does not have a material cause. Because the vidhis of bhakti is also spiritual knowledge, as we were discussing earlier in this week. Because it's coming from the grace of Sri Krishna. The grace of Sri Krishna is to transmit bhakti through a bhakta into our life. And a limb of that is knowledge. In the definition of Uttama Bhakti, Sri Rupa Goswami does not say that Jnana and karma are shunyam. He says anivrittam, meaning they should not cover up bhakti. Because in the material world, knowledge is materially caused and therefore it is materially motivated. But in spiritual life, knowledge should be a genuine expansion of bhakti. And so knowledge is a genuine byproduct of bhakti. And the way we receive that knowledge, sorry, I'm getting a lot of messages. Genuine way to receive that knowledge is by engaging in bhakti. And what is the way for most of us to do that? Is to fix ourselves in the hearing, also reading and chanting of Srimad Bhagavatam. And from that comes vairagyam, detachment. So by hearing Shastra, reading Shastra, speaking Shastra, one becomes detached and not disturbed by the material affairs. And therefore, one can renounce on the basis of Shastra. Otherwise, it's a temporary renunciation. So renunciation should be genuine, like this verse is saying here. Because until bhakti manifests through the process of sadhana bhakti, kriti sadhyat sadhyat bhavat, engaging our senses in the process of sadhana, and one can know that one is doing genuine sadhana because bhava ultimately arises. And a byproduct of that is renunciation. Otherwise, renunciation is based on sentiment. Otherwise, the renunciation will reflect our material consciousness. So the answer to all problems is bhakti. Solution for developing genuine renunciation to genuine detachment. This doesn't say one should get detached from the world and then start engaging in bhakti yoga. No, it's a byproduct. So Bhagavatam itself promises that if we hear it regularly and read, so nowadays, in the traditional earlier days, ages, bygone ages, Shastra was heard, and nowadays through technology, etc., one can hear Shastra through recordings or read it physically. And when we do that, Bhagavatam promises in Canto 2 that Bhagavan will manifest in our hearts because Shastra is the literal sound incarnation of Sri Bhagavan. And therefore it enters through the ears and one develops love for Bhagavan. So we need to hear and read Shastra. It results in genuine and satisfied feelings of renunciation. And we can see that the Acharyas have given us this understanding that we cannot artificially renounce, but it comes naturally. Knowledge and detachment come naturally to one who is engaged in bhakti. So the idea, practical ideas that we should renounce everything in order to come towards Sri Bhagavatam, the beautiful Bhagavatam. There's so many misconceptions that we have in spiritual life. And one is that, we need jnana and karma and this and that to come towards bhakti, but no. Bhakti is independent because it's the Swarup Shakti of Sri Bhagavan. It does not depend on anything else like karma, jnana, yoga, etc. Without understanding that, we will remain confused. And so when you step back, it seems bhakti is very simple and straightforward. But it's most difficult to comprehend. Why is that? Because frankly speaking, we have absolutely no experience of bhakti. We have anadi avidyam. So bhakti is difficult to comprehend because in our subconscious mind, we don't have experience of bhakti. And so there's nothing to pattern match in our mind with the experience and process of bhakti. So we need the grace of Bhagavan and the grace of sadhu sangha and the grace of sound incarnation of Bhagavan and the grace of the process of sadhana bhakti in order to have an experience of some bhakti. The second reason bhakti is difficult to comprehend is that all of our experiences and our innumerable past lives as well as present life are not helpful in understanding bhakti. Rather, they almost seem to work against our comprehension of what is bhakti. And so our shastras, our scriptures are the lifeline, and that the acharyas are speaking through us. So Prabhupada is speaking through us through the Shastra to give us a very clear concept of what is and what is not bhakti. So renunciation by itself is not a part of bhakti, yet it is helpful in the path of bhakti because we have natural attachments in this world. And these attachments blur our vision of the spiritual path. And so we cannot see Hare Krishna. So we cannot see the absolute reality. So natural renunciation, although it's not of itself bhakti, helps us to have some clarity and helps us in the path of bhakti. And so therefore, we see examples of renunciation in our Shastra. We can see it in the teachings of Queen Kunti, the teachings of how Bhishma Dev lived his life. Just in first canto, it's so important that we see examples. In the first canto, Arjun, Yudhishthir, Parikshit Maharaj. But fundamental is understanding the renunciation is a natural outcome of bhakti. We oftentimes hear about the renunciation of the Goswamis. I think somebody's mic is open. We see the renunciation of the Goswamis. We say, wow, Sri Raghunath Goswami just surviving on a palm full of buttermilk in Puri, eating rice, honoring rice of Jagannath Prasadam that is not fit for consumption by either human beings or even by animals. But we understand that the renunciation of great souls like the Goswamis is a result of their intense devotion unto Shri Krishna, and not something that was practiced independently of their intense devotion to Bhagavan, nor something that was practiced continuous consciously. They're not doing Madhukari, because of some artificial renunciation. It was because they were absorbed in Krishna Prem. So Shri Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur talks about how there's this experience of Bhakti Rasa in Krishna Prem where one's mind recedes from the external world and the internal world of Krishna Prem becomes everything. So external activities become very simple. So in this verse, going back to this verse, Maharaj Yudhishthir is showing is exemplary behavior. That don't be attached to a position, be attached to developing love for Bhagavan. That is the greatness of an individual. And to do that, we should be satisfied. Prasannatma. Because when we're satisfied, then we're genuinely happy. We can only be happy when we're pleasing Bhagavan. And when our goal is to please Shri Bhagavan, then detachment and knowledge automatically manifest. Ultimately, he's showing that bhakti is independent of any external processes and is not dependent on knowledge or detachment. It is independent. Why is it independent? Because bhakti is the sarup of Shri Bhagavan. It's his identity. We've repeated this message in our small group gatherings. Bhagavan experiences happiness or ananda within himself. And that happiness is bhakti. And simultaneously, while he's experiencing happiness within himself and tasting his own happiness, he transmits it bhakti, into a devotee. And when that devotee genuinely engages in bhakti, Bhagwan tastes the bliss of himself within the bhakti of that devotee. And that's where the connection occurs between Bhagwan and the bhakta. The link is bhakti because it is what is the genuine identity of Bhagwan. Everything he does, Shri Bhagwan, is to experience the ananda of his own self. That's why he's accompanied by Srimati Radharani, because she demonstrates that bliss of bhakti of Bhagwan for himself at the greatest level. So Bhagavatam is one-pointed focus, that the answer for all challenges and difficulties is to take shelter of Bhagavatam itself. And Bhagavatam's ultimate goal is to bring us to the point of Krishna Prem. And Maharaj Yudhishthir's goal is to experience Krishna Prem, absorption of his heart and his soul in Krishna Prem. You can see that later on in this, when we read this. They all performed all the principles of religion and as a result rightly decided that the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan are the supreme goal of all. Therefore they meditated upon his feet without interruption. The Hariyan. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'll come back to the verse. And devotees can share reflections. I hope I did not cause greater confusion. one speaking the verse and transmitted Srila Prabhupada's purport in essence. Quite comments, questions. I'm asking this time for myself. Sharing. There are many learned devotees on this call. Parakaran Prabhu, please add.
It was, I got the latter half of the lecture, Prabhuji. It was so nice on renunciation. Very wonderfully said. I'm so happy to hear this wonderful narration or description of renunciation in such a nice way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining and sharing. Additions? Questions? Krishna Murray Prabhu?
Prabhuji, as I understand, Yudhishthir Maharaj, even if he didn't resign, even if he did not take Vanaprastha, he was a pure devotee. He would have done benefit for everybody. Is there a necessity for even pure devotees or what devotees who are really evolved in their consciousness to follow these rules? They will do it for Yadya the Charti stress, but are they generally required to follow such rules? Because Yudhishthir Maharaj, by his mere presence, he was benefiting the world.
That's what we were saying. That, they were feeling separation from Krishna, Shri Krishna. And because they're Uttama Bhaktas, it was a natural consequence of his bhakti. It wasn't a requirement. Just like Maharaj Parikshit could have stayed in the kingdom, he's powerful enough to have battled, the curse that was placed upon him. But why? He took it as an opportunity to be in Krishna's continuous association. So he welcomed it and allowed himself to leave his body. So it's not a requirement. It's an effect of one's genuine bhakti. So he's not attached to position. He's attached to Bhagwan. And as a result of attachment to Bhagwan, he has genuine empowerment. And therefore the entire kingdom is blessed. But sometimes that attachment for Bhagwan is so overpowering, and one realizes that is the goal of one's life, that one responsibly hands over the reins to another responsible person. So he wasn't irresponsible. He didn't do it instantly. Oh, I heard the news Krishna's left. Okay, I'm gone. I'm going to the Himalayas. He didn't do that. He responsibly put individuals that had capability into positions. Just like Srila Prabhupada did when he left. He created a society of devotees. He gave them practical instructions, but he also gave them the higher principles. And then, he left. Mahaprabhu did the same thing at the later stages of his Leela. He became completely detached from external. And so he lived the internal. So the internal feelings of separation manifested in all of his physical acts. But he did it responsibly. He empowered the Goswamis to develop and nurture the message of bhakti that he came to give. Right? So we see that in examples throughout history. Did that address your concern or question?
Yes, bro. So this question comes practically to many devotees who plan to go for Vanaprastha. What is the right age? What is the right money savings they have done? Right? What is the financial position or spiritual position they have achieved? Whether they should opt for Vanaprastha story or should not? This is a very practical question. You have really, and this class was really, really insightful on that issue. So grateful for that. So grateful. It was so much intense.
I think the idea is renunciation must be responsible and genuine. And it can only be responsible and genuine when one is satisfied in one's relationship with Bhagavan. Any other comments or additions?
Thank you so much.
Any other comments or additions? It's nice to see so many devotees joining the Sunday morning Bhagavatam. Okay. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripo sindhavyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishmyo namo namaha. Please come for Sunday feast, temple, 11:30 class. All glories to His Divine Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Nitai Gaur, Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Can I go ahead and end the
Yes.
module?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for a very insightful class. Hare Krishna.
I don't know
Thank
how
you.
insightful, but I spoke.
No, Prabhu, very, very nice about all the important points in renunciation and especially bhakti after last week's Maharaj's class. It was really nice, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'll let you all go. So I know you have short time to do household chores. Take care. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.